Big news! Google is facing an imminent antitrust investigation from the U.S. Justice Department. The DOJ is said to have spent the past few weeks preparing for the probe. Now, this is going to be a part of a bigger segment where I talk about journalism and the rise of techno-fascism. And I use that term somewhat facetiously, but no, we seriously have dangerous zealots controlling a small handful of big tech companies that are essentially working in tandem with repressive governments like China. And yeah, we need to enforce some laws against these companies. Now, I think it's interesting that Google, of all companies, is facing the imminent antitrust. I guess it makes sense considering Google has their tendrils in everything. But come on, man. Facebook is so much worse. Please, can we do something about Facebook? Which is, it's actually kind of funny. Facebook's gone on a hiring spree for antitrust lawyers. Did you know this? What do you think they're preparing for? Duh. Now, before we read into the story, go to timcast.com/donate if you'd like to support my work. Different ways to donate: cryptocurrency, real fiat currency, whatever you want to call it, physical address. But of course, just like and comment because the engagement really helps. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and share because that's like the best thing you can do. The story says Google may soon face an antitrust investigation from the U.S. Department of Justice pertaining to its search business and potentially other aspects of the company's sprawling software and services empire. According to a late Friday evening report from the Wall Street Journal, the DOJ is said to have spent the past few weeks preparing for the probe following publication of the Wall Street Journal story. The Washington Post, New York Times, and Bloomberg are confirming an imminent antitrust probe. Citing anonymous sources, the Wall Street Journal says the Federal Trade Commission, which works alongside the DOJ to bring federal antitrust cases, will defer to the Justice Department in this case. Prior to this, the FTC brought a case against the company in 2011 related to the placement of tracking cookies in Apple's Safari browser. That case was resolved a year later with a $22.5 million civil penalty judgment. At the time, the largest such judgment the FTC had ever earned in court. According to Wall Street Journal, the FTC then investigated Google in 2013 for broad antitrust violations, but closed the case without taking any action against the search giant. Now the DOJ is leading the charge on a new, potentially unprecedented antitrust evaluation of the company. Spot on. I'll make a point, though. I am on YouTube. YouTube is the overwhelming majority of my income. There's two arguments as to the dangers or the benefit of the monopoly. Some people argue that the only reason the partner program works on YouTube, the only reason people like me are able to make money, is because YouTube is subsidizing our channels. There is a near infinite amount of digital content to advertise on. How many billions of minutes of YouTube videos? That means to run an ad on a YouTube video to get a view, it's literally like a penny. Now, if you want to advertise on a premium brand, it costs more. It could cost up to $10 for 1,000 views or something. But basically the argument is that so long as YouTube maintains this monopoly, they can continue to subsidize paying YouTube creators like me. And if they lost that monopoly and there was a bunch of different video platforms being used, competition would be so just awful. Views would be less than a penny. And they are in some places, like a tenth of a cent. That means you make no money. You can get 1 million views. You make $100? Some ridiculously small number. $100 is great, but 1 million views is rare. However, there's another argument that if YouTube loses their monopoly in the video space, it will actually drive up the competition, resulting in people spending more money for premium access. It's hard to know which will play out. Let me know what you think in the comments if you're watching on YouTube. But there's more to talk about. Now, Yahoo wrote a story called "Google Should Be Afraid," very afraid. And they say, well, I'm not going to read too much into this, right? They talk about, it's essentially their opinion on the antitrust rodeo, but I did want to highlight they're saying Google should be afraid. And I think it's not a bad thing. Because what we're seeing in the current world of these massive tech giants getting away with whatever they want, enforcing rules however they so choose, we are in a dangerous time. Okay, this antitrust news is good news for one reason. When there was a point where Google was down, and it was something like 80% of internet traffic stopped. Because when most people are looking for a website, they don't type in the URL, they don't type in Facebook.com. They type in Facebook, hit enter, and then whatever Google shows, they click. So people mostly get their internet by just searching on Google. Most browsers default Google search. That means if Google wants to remove certain news, You can search for a story that only exists on like a conservative outlet. Google can remove it. You'll search like, Hillary Clinton scandal. Nothing comes up. And this has happened before where people have highlighted that certain phrases don't autofill. You could type in like Hillary Clinton and email doesn't appear. But you type in other names and like Donald Trump and scandals and other things appear. Google can control what you can see. Facebook can control what you can see. And I believe they're doing this inadvertently. Journalism became fringe far-left insanity with the rise of BuzzFeed when they realized they could just make rage-bait content on Facebook. The algorithm would show you, and you know what the saying is, out of sight, out of mind? Well, the inverse is also apparently true. If the only thing you ever see is social justice rage bait, you live in this world of psychosis where everyone's oppressing everyone else. The world doesn't really like that. But people only see this on Facebook. They think that's reality. Facebook can control this if they want to. And I'd be willing to bet they do. Glenn Greenwald had a really funny tweet. He said, one of the greatest and most exciting promises of the early internet was its unparalleled freedom of expression. Action and exploration unconstrained by government and corporate control. Just 2 decades later, it's about begging a handful of tech giants about who should and shouldn't be heard. Spot on, Glenn. I completely agree. He says giant corporations always heed the demands and preferences of those with the greatest power, money, and influence. As a result, any framework that allows giant tech companies to decide who can and can't be heard will largely end up silencing the marginalized. I agree. The issue of conservatives being censored is not because they're an oppressed minority. Quite the opposite. It's because first they come for you, then they come for me. We must protect the speech of everyone, lest we allow the cliffs of speech to be eroded. Unfortunately, what do we end up with? John Levine of The Rep says, a not insignificant amount of journalism today consists of emailing tech giants to demand they remove accounts you don't like. Yup, that's what it is. Glenn Greenwald response, they're like little hall monitors tattling to the teachers on the bad kids and begging they be put in detention. If I went into journalism and that trying to get people silenced by pleading with authorities became one of my primary tasks, I'd avoid looking in any mirrors. I love it. I love it. Glenn, I love it. Wonderful tweet. John Levine, wonderful tweet. And I can say I know for a fact, many journalists simply reach out, smear people. They do these slimy tricks. Here's what they'll do. Find a company where a laundromat, right? Let's say you see a Proud Boy. They walk into a laundromat to wash their shirts. Most laundromats don't have like a manager. Like someone sits there and gives you quarters. You walk in, you get your quarters, you put them in the machine, you press go. Now they have automated like machines where you get a card. In Brooklyn, years ago, my laundromat, you put in $5, you get a plastic card, you swipe it in the machine. Nobody knows who's using it or why. Here's what journalists would do. Proud Boy walks in, walks out. They walk in, go to the manager and say, recently, an alt-right group that is labeled a hate group by many organizations and been banned on various platforms has been using your premises. Why do you support these groups? And is your support indicative of you being alt-right? Why do you support these groups? You see how they frame it? As if that person knew who the hell was using their washing machine. This causes a panic. The business says, we don't support them. Well, of course, you're allowing them your premises. You do support them. Well, we didn't know who that was. Too bad. Then they write this big piece saying like, Bill's Laundromat is a haven for the alt-right. Complete insane nonsense. I'll tell you something really funny. 2 stories come out in like the past week. One talks about how Minds.com, M-I-N-D-S, which is like a smaller alternative. I hate saying alternative, but it's certainly not a big tech giant. Full disclosure, I work with them, with the Minds guys in some capacity. I use Minds very often. I think it's a great platform. Well, Motherboard puts out a story saying that it's like a haven for the alt-right or something. Heavens. You mean to tell me that on a platform with over 1 million users, you're going to have some nasty people? What did they find? They found like 5 accounts, and they were like, grasping their pearls. At the same time, Twitter. A story from the Huffington Post says that Twitter has the same problem. It's because these people are lunatics, and all they care about is getting their traffic. These media companies are little hall monitors tattling to the teachers. These tech giants, these tech companies in general, are scared of bad PR and say, whatever you say, we'll just do it. And they do. I will say this, as far as it goes with Minds, I think they're a lot better. They implemented a jury system, meaning the users decide, not the staff. You will get flagged, you will get your content removed, you can appeal to the user base, and the user base will decide whether or not you should be allowed. They're working it out, but this is a way better system than like the arbitrary staff, underpaid people looking at tweets and trying to figure out if it should or shouldn't go. It's a better system. The point is, these tech giants are dangerous. They restrict speech. These weird, creepy, far-left activists are reaching out to tech giants to get people banned because they've weaponized journalism. Journalism has been completely infiltrated by lunatics who don't care about minimizing harm. One of the most important tenets of ethical journalism is minimize harm. And I learned that the hard way. Okay, but what you got to do, when you reach out to Bill's laundromat, you don't say, this particular person is using, you say, we've seen certain groups associated with certain ideologies using your platform. Do you support this? We don't. Okay, end of story. But what they do is they'll say, Bill Smith entered your laundromat. Why do you support him? And they'll say, Bill Smith's banned, and they'll kick him out of the laundromat. That's not minimizing harm. That's maximizing harm with the intent to harm an individual. This is why it's so important that when we see these stories about, antitrust, we take them seriously. It's not just about these fringe wacko lefties that are weaponizing media. It's about the fact that they're able to because these big tech companies will bend over backwards for them. They have too much power. Break up, YouTube, Facebook, whatever. Figure it out. I don't know. And then it won't matter if one bans you. You'll have a bunch of different alternatives. Right now, there are none. And when people try making alternatives, what happens? They get smeared, attacked, and silenced. And that's the problem today. So it's not just about the monopolies. It's about these wacko lunatics working for media, but it's also about the fact that our society is so weak. They are terrified of a little bad press. I don't care what you call me. I really don't care, dude. I'll go live in the woods and I'll hunt squirrel. Okay? I'm being somewhat facetious. Bring it on. Smear me all day and night. It's been happening nonstop. Welcome to the real world. But you know what? These people can dish it. They can't take it. You see what's going on with Vox and Steven Crowder. Oh no, someone was mean to me on the internet. Oh, please. Anyway, stick around. I got one more segment coming up for you in just a few moments, and I will see you then.